Views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. No retribution. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. Well, a little later today on this show, within the hour, we're going to be talking about Iran and how I believe the current president of the United States is a little naive with regard to Iran. You may agree with me or you may disagree with me. I want to hear from you on that issue. But first, check this out. President Bush, in the waning hours of his administration, was well aware that General Motors was teetering on the brink of total collapse. In fact, he knew that in all likelihood, bankruptcy was the only answer to this situation. Confronted with a crisis, did he roll up his sleeves? Did he do what presidents are supposed to do? No. No, he did not. He decided, you know what, fellas? Let's just pretend that this problem doesn't exist, and let's pass this on to the Obama administration so that when that feller gets into the White House, he'll have a crisis staring him in the face. Now, this is not the words of Alan Jacey or some Democratic functionary. No. Quite contrary. These are the words of Richard Bruce Dick Cheney. Now, don't take my word for it. Listen to the former vice president himself as he explains this to Greta Van Susteren on the Fox News channel last night. Roll the tape there, Boaz, please.
I thought that eventually the right outcome was going to be bankruptcy. They had to go through such a dramatic restructuring to have any chance of survival, that they had to be able to renegotiate labor contracts and so forth. The president decided that he did not want to be the one who pulled the plug just before he left office. He wouldn't be there through the process of managing it, but in effect would have sort of pulled the plug on GM, and that was one of the first crises the new administration would have to deal with.
That's right. He didn't want to have to pull the plug on GM. It would be one of the first crises that the new administration would have to deal with. Now, when I wrote this, by the way, in the blog, there are those who accuse me of twisting Dick Cheney's words. Well, there are his words right from his mouth to our ears. Now, Alan Jacey, I have a question for you. And it's not the question that you're anticipating. Before we get into what the hell Bush was thinking of, because in my opinion, you're president of the United States from the moment you take office to the moment next president puts his hand on the Bible and swears to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. And as President-elect Obama said before he was sworn in, hey, there's only one president at a time. And right now he said it's George Bush. Apparently George Bush didn't agree with that near the end of his administration. He was in a hurry to get to Crawford because, you know, obviously in the 8 years that he was president, he didn't see Crawford very often. Kidding. But I want to ask you about Dick Cheney. You know, one of the big jokes or questions during the Bush administration, especially during the second term, is where the hell is Dick Cheney? You know, everybody thought that he was on life support someplace because he was never in the public eye, never making any pronouncements. You didn't even get a glimpse of him, not even a wave to the cameras. He was like incommunicado. Now the guy just can't shut up. He's all over the place. What's this all about?
Yeah, hi, Gary. Hello, everyone. Yeah, that's a good question. From all of a sudden, from Dick Cheney being 8 years in the witness protection program, to all of a sudden to turn into Chatty Cathy. I mean, he has just, in the last few months, has just continued to make his presence known, and seems now, it's like he's on a book tour, and he just seems to be wanting to, tell everybody what the facts are as the way he sees them. Gary, it's interesting is that last line that was shown in the video about where that Bush didn't want to be the one to pull the plug. Well, again, I don't understand that, because, I mean, TARP, all this bailout for the banks, all these financial institutions, that was ongoing. That went from the Bush administration into Obama's lap. So why would the situation with pulling the plug on GM during his administration, what would make that any different than TARP? I mean, TARP continues. The banks are now getting their money in order and returning it to the program, or a lot of the banks are. There's still Bank of America and Citi still have major issues, but most of the other banks that have received money seem to be, trying to get ready to repay at least part of it for now. But again, that's what's fascinating about this, is how that Cheney comes right out and says this, that the plan was for the previous administration to dump this whole thing onto Obama's administration. And B, will this man ever stop talking? I mean, it's good we're actually finding out what we think we're finding out, what was going on in the previous administration, that, through the eyes of Dick Cheney at least. But it's just... it baffles me, the rationalization that Cheney has taken, and that they couldn't deal with GM or Chrysler during their administration, and then do what they normally do, is work together with the incoming administration, basically turn all the things that they're working on over to the new administration. I mean, that's what that transition period is for, is to get the new administration up to speed. So, again, a bizarro world comment from Dick Cheney. That's all I can say on it.
Well, I'm sure George W. Bush is not too happy about all these revelations coming out of Cheney's mouth over the past couple of weeks, and I don't think he's doing the Republican Party very much good, but it seems that he's trying to position himself so that it appears that he made the right decisions and he made the right recommendations to the president with regard to waterboarding and now with regard to General Motors. But in this case, unlike waterboarding, the president didn't follow his